Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And today we're just going to talk. We're going to talk about a few things that I feel are extremely important in life. And I feel that this is actually what has made our people, frankly, useless, and what has made our civilization regress. People always talk about, listening and communication. But do you know why we still fail? It's because although we always talk about communication is key and about how it's important to listen to the other person, we all actually prefer to just dismiss the other person. Especially, when it's somebody you know. Well, nowadays it's become the culture that it doesn't matter if it's somebody you know or if it doesn't. Before, there used to be a saying in Urdu, "Ghar ki murgi dal barabar," which literally meant that the resident chicken was actually equal to a lentil. In other words, it was given no importance. In other words, you have no importance amongst your own people. They don't realize or see your worth. But now I think this actually it's not contained to family only. It's everybody. Everybody wants to, everybody's a narcissist. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be listened to. Nobody wants to hear and nobody wants to listen. The amount of effort it takes for the other person to listen to you. Don't think for a moment that that person has all the time in the world to listen to you. Okay? It takes a lot of effort to actually listen to whatever it is that's coming out of your mouths. Just like how it may feel to you that it takes effort to listen to another person. So it goes both ways. You need to understand that. So if you just don't want to listen to another person, understand that the other person too is not obliged to or interested in listening to you. They're making an effort. And that is real effort. You attempting to communicate is not an effort. Them attempting to listen to you, that's an effort. Because as we all know, it's very difficult to listen to somebody else, as we're just right now making that point. Throughout my life, I have never talked much to people except when necessary. And one of the reasons is because I always know exactly what the other person is going to say anyway. But I still always gave them that benefit. I always made the double effort to listen to them. And why is it double? Because I already know exactly what it is that they're going to say. This is something that my students and my friends always used to, they used to kind of have fun with that, where they would always say, okay, tell me what am I going to say now? Okay, tell me what am I going to say now? And they would always be amazed as to the fact that I would know exactly whatever it is that they wanted to say or they were going to say. I could literally map out a whole conversation, even days before. To be honest, my instincts have been so sharp. It took me years to sort of push that way to the back, because when you have such sharp instincts that even before something happens, you know it's going to happen. And even before you meet somebody, you know you're going to meet somebody. And you know exactly what that person is going to say, because it doesn't change anything. You knowing what's going to happen doesn't change anything. I know there are a lot of, myths and movies and dramas and shows and series made out of how you can change the future if you know what's going to. But yeah, no, in real life, you truly cannot do jack shit. Why? Because we are surrounded by idiots. We're surrounded by idiots, and I call them idiots because they are narcissistic, self-centered, inconsiderate, dismissive, know-it-all idiots. And these are people who will never realize they're wrong, even after they've made humongous mistakes that have caused somebody else a huge amount of suffering. And that is why we are where we are today, where the whole world is suffering at the hands of each other, but nobody is taking the responsibility. Nobody is admitting it to the fact. And in Islam, actually, according to Hazrat Ali, the nephew and one of the closest companions of the Prophet, according to him, what doubles your sin of hurting somebody else is when that person actually has the courage to come to you and tell you that, you hurt me, and you have the gall to give a justification or an excuse to try to tell that person that you did not hurt him. Because you see, it doesn't matter that you think that you've hurt him or not. What matters is that he got hurt because of something that you said and did. Whether you did it deliberately or not, at this point does not matter. Especially if instead of apologizing sincerely, you're now trying to make excuses or justifications. Or if you actually start arguing with that person, or dismissing that person's pain, or dismissing that person's hurt, dismissing that person's suffering caused by you. So you have actually added to his pain again, you have hurt him all over again, and you have doubled your sin. And remember, this is one sin that will never be forgiven. The only sins that God promises to forgive us are the sins we commit against ourselves and against God. But the sins that we commit against others, they cannot be forgiven until and unless they forgive us, which obviously will never happen, because forgiveness is for God, it's not for people. Especially if you've put people in such a bind and you've made them suffer to such an extent that their life has stopped moving in any direction whatsoever. That is when you really need to be shitting your pants, and that's when you really need to be scared, because that means that they will never forget and they will never forgive. And after that, every single word that comes out of your mouth will just accumulate. It will add to it over and over and over again. And remember, you cannot force somebody to forgive you. That's another very, very atrocious act that people seem to think that it's okay to do. And that is when they start forcing people to forgive them. Why? I mean, why the frack would that person forgive you just because you want them to forgive you? That again means that you're dismissing that person as a human being with feelings. You're dismissing that person's equal status, as a human being. So you're again accumulating to your sins. So stop talking about how it is essential to have a communication and how it is essential to listen to others, because nobody listens to anybody. And everybody seems to think that everybody's time is theirs. Nobody realizes the utter importance of somebody giving you their time and making an effort to engage with you in a conversation. Because let me tell you one thing, just because somebody is talking to you doesn't mean that that person actually wants to talk to you, or that that person is in the mood to talk to you, or that that person enjoys talking to you. No, that person is actually making an effort out of the precious time in their life. That time that you seem to keep on wanting to waste, because you seem to think that their lives are not important, their time is not important. So everybody should have time for you. Tell me, who do you have time for? Who have you given time to? Listening to somebody is giving time to them. Do you know that? If somebody is listening to you, he is giving you his precious time. That precious time with which he can actually do something more constructive as far as he's concerned. So if, for example, a person like me, as I said, throughout my life, I've always known exactly what it is that the other person is going to say next, but I still stand and listen to that person. I actually let them have a full conversation with me, despite the fact that actually I don't even need to have that conversation with that person, because I know exactly what that person is going to say. But because I'm not God, because I know I can be wrong, I make the effort to go through the motion of having a conversation with that person and listening to that person. That is a double effort. I mean, you normally make an effort when you're listening to somebody, but imagine that you already know what that person is going to say and do, and yet you're letting them say and do whatever it is that they want to say and do. You are making double efforts. And I've done that my entire life, which is why it really pees me off when I look at people dismissing each other like that. And when I look at people thinking that they can say and do anything they like, and I need to be understanding towards them, when the idiots have no clue as to the amount of understanding I'm already giving to them by just standing there and listening to them, when I actually already know whatever the frack it is that they have to say. And the fact that people are so self-centered that they keep on forcing others to go according to them, but they never take responsibility. It's like America, It's like how America keeps on manipulating and using other countries and controlling them to do whatever it is that it wants them to do. And then America suddenly is hands off. America's like, oh, I have nothing to do with this. Oh, I never knew anything. And they will neatly lay the blame and the responsibility and the accountability on all those countries. Deniability. How do you better understand it? Just look at your parents. Your parents are America. America's your parents. There's literally no difference whatsoever. They will set you up to fall. They will set you up to fail just so that they can say, look, you did whatever you wanted to. It didn't work out. Now go according to our plans. Go according to us. And even though you're actually going to fall and fail and suffer even more, but they will never admit it until the end. And at the end, when they can no longer deny the fact that you have truly, utterly destroyed yourself and your life and your future prospects because of them, then they will neatly blame you for it. You didn't do this. We never told you to do it. You did this on your own, but you didn't do this. If you did this, this would have happened. If you did it, we had nothing to. So everything is on you. Even though they're the ones that made the decisions for your life, they're the ones that forced you to take that track or that path that they wanted you to. They're the ones that ruined your whole future prospects. They're the ones that didn't allow you to do whatever it is that you wanted to do. There you are. So this is the kind of civilization that we have had for centuries. And as I said, it always begins at home. Whenever you need to understand a society, a civilization, look at your own home. The system that is set up, the family system that is set up, and then after that, that family system transpires into your society, that transpires into your culture. That is what then makes up your system, your governmental system or your establishment. Then that is what makes up your country, your state, and then that is what makes up your region. That is what makes up your continent. That is what makes up the global region. And that is, at the end of the day, what makes up your civilization. It all begins from a very tiny speck of individualism, beginning right at home, of individual narcissism, the need to control, the need to dominate, the need to impose. And all of this is actually a huge sin. Again, in Islam, this is the sin. This is your foundation of all your sins. This is the foundation. To understand that. So this is the sins, the mother of all sins. This is from where all your other sins come out and extend. So imagine what you're doing. Imagine imagine the immense, how do we put it this way to make it better? Imagine how deeply we are sucked into this regressive mode of controlling people, of dominating people, of imposing on people. I mean, as I said, this is the mother of all sins, and we are deeply immersed in it. So imagine just how far gone we are. And the fact that nobody even wants to think about it or rectify it, As I said, giving up of your time is the most precious thing, because even God swears by time. There's a whole chapter on time, Surah Al-Asr. By time verily man is in loss. God swears by time. And he adds, he basically links time to man's loss, which is true. And I've said this even before in my previous podcasts. Our major loss is time. Every second counts, but we end up wasting so much time for people who don't deserve it. And then we end up thinking that, okay, we don't need to waste our time at all. So then we end up completely dissing other people who actually do need some of our time. So it's an ongoing vicious cycle, What I would say is that, and this is something I've said like a billion times now, you need to remember your role in this life. You need to forget about your rights and your expectations and think about how it goes both ways. If you have rights, so does the other person. If you want to be excused, so does the other person. If you want to be considered, so does the other person. You know, do unto others what you want done unto you. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Don't always think that everybody should understand you because you're too young or you're too old or because your parents or because your children or because your siblings or because your family or because you're the government or because you're the public or because you're the establishment or because you're the this is bullshit. These are just excuses to take privileges that aren't meant to be yours. These are excuses to justify imposition upon others. These are excuses to justify domination upon others. These are excuses to commit crimes. These are excuses to commit sins against others. And that is why, again, I would say our world has regressed. Our civilization has regressed because we are dealing with people who think that they are looking at the future, but they have no idea about what long term planning really means. To them, long term planning is the next 10 years. I've said this before, I'll say it again. To me, long term planning is all the way to my death, all the way to my grave. That is long term planning. You think 10 years? I think eternity. That is long term planning. You try to match that long term planning with mine. Your 10 years, they're my short term planning. In fact, they're not even my short term planning. My short term planning is 20 years. It's always 20 years. And when people talk to me about how they think about the future and how they talk about I swear I don't know if I should smack them or if I should laugh at them. Because these are the same people whose very decisions have caused so many people suffering and whose very decisions have caused so many people a loss of time, which again is the biggest loss you can cause somebody. It's not the loss of life, it's not the loss of, materialistic things, it's not the loss of money, it's the loss of time. When all the doors and windows are shut and that person is trapped and he can't move forward, he can't move backward, there is no way in hell that there is any movement left in his life. He is well and truly trapped. You have given him the loss of time. You have taken away from him his time and basically, in turn, his life. So, explain to me, what future is it that you people are thinking about when you make such stupid decisions that affect people, their time, their lives, and even their deaths? All you have managed to do is to create resentment. You've managed to create grudges. You've managed to create a whole lot of suffering. And you've managed to create enmity that will ruin your eternity. Is that how far back you think? Seriously? Is that how you think about the future? Where you think that, oh, it doesn't matter what I do here, my eternity is all set, God will forgive me. I have something in my balance. I have something to offer. No, you have nothing to offer. You don't. Whatever it is that you've done to hurt the other person can outweigh all the good things that you've done on earth. Did you ever stop and think about that? You are not making an effort. That other person who is enduring you, who is tolerating you, who is bearing you, and who is keeping their mouths shut despite the fact that they have a lot to say to you about how much damage you have caused them, that even God cannot compensate that damage. Yeah, that person is the one who's making an effort. You're just that useless, jacked up, narcissistic idiot who thinks you know everything. And you know what? And the day of judgment is when you will realize that you knew nothing and you still know nothing. And that time you will be going around asking people to tell you something, and they will all have one thing to say: you know everything, figure it out yourself. You have no idea of the depths of damage that you're causing your own self. You have no idea of the amount of damage you've caused to your own eternity by damaging other people, by damaging their minds, by damaging their lives, by damaging their time, by causing them loss of every kind, by causing them suffering, by causing them pain, and then failing to take responsibility. It's amazing how people are very active when they have to cause somebody else harm and loss, but when they need to fix things, then suddenly they remember God's existence, and then the only thing they can do is to sit and pray. Oh, we pray for you. Did you pray for the other person's loss? No. You literally physically went and with your own two hands caused that person loss. So why can't you physically with your own two hands fix it? Why should God come and fix it? And God never fixes anything. Have you ever seen in your entire history God coming and fixing anything for anybody? Seriously? God is literally dead to the world. Seriously. Right now, God's role in this world is he's dead. And he doesn't give a frack. He will wake up. He will get back to life when this world ends. And that's when he will suddenly start issuing his commands left, right, and order. And his orders, like left, right, and center. And at the end of the day, again, man is in loss. No matter what you do, you're at a loss. Because God is never going to accept the fact that he too can be wrong, because God is never wrong. So even if he is wrong, he's not wrong. And how can he be wrong? Because he's God, right? So it doesn't matter that God even added to your pain and your suffering and through those other people. God is not going to pay for it. The other people are going to pay for it. So yeah, while you're thinking long term, think about that too. All the pain and suffering that you're causing another person, it may be that God is using you to cause that person pain and suffering, but at the end, God is America. He's not going to take responsibility for it. You are. The whole caboodle will fall on you. Think about such things for once in your lives, When you sit and brag about how much you know, and when you sit and brag about how you think long term, and when you sit and brag about your brains, just give those 2 seconds and sit and think about how stupid you really are. Just think about that. Yeah, let's just sit down and think about how stupid we are. That we have no clue as to what the other person really is thinking. We have no clue as to what we're really doing to the other person. We all want to be understood, but we dismiss the other person immediately. We never want to understand the other person. We all want everybody to look at our take, but we never listen to other people's opinions. We matter. The whole world revolves around us, right? But they don't listen. Everybody is a protagonist in their own lives. Everybody is the hero of their own lives. Keep that in mind. The world does not revolve around you. It never will. And whenever you think about sitting and talking about how much your brain is such an enhanced specimen that it compares to Einstein, just think about these few things that I've talked about. And, just marvel at the fact that you've actually never even thought of these things in your entire life, which essentially just tells you how stupid you are. You need to think carefully before you open your mouths and talk to another person as if that person doesn't know what it is that you're talking about. In my case, I have always given people benefit of the doubt that they actually have a brain and that they actually understand anything and everything, and I don't need to tell them anything unless asked. That is how I've lived my life. I have made the effort to listen to people even though I know exactly what it is that they're going to say. I've made the effort to allow people to think that they are more intelligent than they really are. I have actually made the effort to endure people that I actually cannot tolerate and do not even want to look at. And I have actually made the effort to engage in conversations even though I literally loathe people and I loathe having conversations. So imagine how I would feel when somebody is acting as if they're giving me the time of the day and they're making an effort to talk to me, Now, imagine if on the day of judgment, the first thing that God will tell them is that, this person never even wanted to look at your face, but this person actually constantly made efforts throughout their lives to listen to you yap about how magnificent you are. What do you have to say to that? Imagine the embarrassment and the humiliation you will face in front of the whole world. And I keep on and on meeting such people, within the family, outside of the family. It doesn't matter if they're people I know, it doesn't matter if they're strangers. I swear the amount of such stupid, narcissistic, self centered, idiotic morons that I have to go through in life. And you actually think that I would enjoy having a conversation with you? Now imagine what I really think about people around me, what I really think about human beings, and then think about how I actually take the time to have conversations with people, and understand them. And you know why I understand them? Because I already know what the bloody hell it is that they have to say. That's why I understand them. How else do you think I understand people? It's because I actually do know people. I know, but I know that I am not God, and I know that what I think I know can be wrong. So I always give the other person a chance to say whatever it is that they need to say, to show whatever it is that they need to show, to prove myself wrong. Unfortunately, 99% of the time, I'm always proved right anyway. But the fact that there is still that 1% that can prove me wrong is what keeps me humble. That is what keeps me very, very humble. Because the funny thing about it is that even though people at one point realize that I actually know them so well that they don't need to tell me anything for me to understand, but they are the ones who never have understood me, and they're the ones who are very quick to pass judgments regarding me. And it's always wrong. Amazing. Whatever judgments they pass is always wrong. They don't even know 0.00001% of me. And sometimes it's annoying, but sometimes it's like, what the frack? Why am I giving time to such people who are so stupid that they've realized that they can talk to me because I understand them, because I can actually reach into the depths, the recesses of their brains and see what it is that they're actually trying to tell me. But they did not even make 0.0001% effort to return that respect to me, of making that percent of effort, and this is why actually I don't give a frag about people in general. And this is why I've stopped. Before, I actually used to pity them. I used to have empathy and sympathy for people, But actually now I'm at that point in life for quite some time now where I really do not give a frack. In fact, if anything, I feel like I should blame them for being the way they are, for deliberately closing their eyes and being ignorant, for deliberately digging their heads burying their heads into the sand, for deliberately being stupid, because to me this is deliberate. Because again, if I can see all of that, why can't anybody else? This is not something special that is granted just to me. This is something we're all born with. So why do 99% of human beings choose to dismiss all of that and live in eternal ignorance? But they all want to brag about how much they know. And the funny thing is, they always want to brag in front of those people who actually know. And I imagine a person coming up to Einstein and talking about how much he knows about the universe and the earth and about nuclear physics and about everything. And Einstein's going to say, okay, I didn't know. I mean, seriously. So, but I mean, before I used to enjoy proving to myself every time that, I actually, but now, as I said, I'm at that point for quite some time now where I'm more than bored at the monotony of the human brain, of the monotony of the human characteristics, of how monotonous human beings are and how predictable they are. and how predictable our civilization has always been, and how predictable every civilization before that has been, because they all seem to meet the same end. Every civilization touches the same peak, and then they all meet the same end. And our civilization did not even touch half of the peak of the previous civilizations, but it's already nearing its end. It's amazing. It really is. And you know why? It's because our civilization threw away the one thing that the previous civilizations knew the importance of: humility. And that is what has taken us to our doom and regression at a faster pace. Remember when God always says he doesn't like the ignorant, he doesn't like the egotistical. Yeah, try to understand the meaning of it. It is always your arrogance, your pride, your ego that drags you down. Because at that point, you start thinking of yourself as God. That is when you have that God complex, when you think you know everything. And in that, you cause so much harm to so many people around you, but you still go around thinking that you're right and you've made no mistake. And you don't set yourself accountable for whatever it is that you've done. You don't set yourself responsible for whatever it is that you've done. And you go around, in the wake of destruction caused by you. And you still keep on thinking that you're right and you're never wrong. And then, you want people to excuse you when you suddenly do realize that you've done something. But you know what? You can't keep on doing that to people. They too must have reached their limits, and they're no longer interested in excusing you, because the damage, the loss is too high, and it cannot even be compensated by God himself. Now imagine, there are some losses which even God admits in the Quran, that there are some losses, some harms, some damages that even he cannot compensate for in the day of judgment. And as a result, he will cheat you. How will he cheat you? He will make you forget everything. That's the only thing he can do. So imagine that even God acknowledges that the pain that another man can cause you can be so immense that even God can do nothing to compensate, to ease that pain. And so the only thing left is to make you forget everything. Imagine how much pain one human being can cause another. Just imagine the extent that even God cannot compensate. I mean, just take that into account and think of the amount of harm and pain and loss and suffering you can cause another human being, that even God cannot compensate him. I doubt even the devil can cause anybody that much harm. Actually, even a person can be compensated for anything pretty much that the devil has done, but he cannot be compensated for so many things that another human being has done to him. If you actually realize the importance of that, the depth of that, you wouldn't dare open your mouth in front of another person next time. And that is actually one of the reasons too why I do not talk much to people, is that I just don't even want to create a situation where I'm forced to hurt the other person, even if it is in retaliation of the other person hurting me first. And it always happens. The other person always hurts me first. I usually let go, but that doesn't mean I've actually let go. No. The resentment builds until I find the right time to punch that person twice as hard. And that is again because I have spent my life sympathizing with such morons, empathizing with how stupid the human race is, with how stupid the human race wants to be, empathizing and sympathizing with people's selfishness, their limited brain structure. But now it just pees me off, as I said. Now it pees me off. Now I feel that people should take responsibility for deliberately wanting to remain stupid. Because that is exactly what people are doing when they do such thing. They are deliberately committing themselves to ignorance and stupidity when it concerns everybody else around them. They don't want to think about anybody else but themselves. So they need to pay for it. They need to take responsibility for it. They need to be responsible for their actions and their words then. Because in this world, nothing is free, right? So why should we let them go? This is why I now actually take the time to pay them back. And I think you're very lucky if somebody has paid you back. Because if that person doesn't, then God will come and pay you back. And now imagine how that would be, or what that would be. It would, that person paying you back is probably not even 1% of what God is going to do to you, both in this life and after death. Because when God starts paying you back, He starts paying you back while you're still living this life. Although, to be honest, I'm also at that point where I don't give a frack about karma. I don't give a frack about God paying anybody back, because I'm sorry, I don't see how it helps when you're being punished and you don't even know you're being punished. People think that this is actually a very good way because it's sort of like revenge served best on a cold platter. But to me, it's useless. To me, it's important that the person should know what it is that they're paying for. And another thing, okay, even if they don't know what they're paying for, how is it helping the other person who's been their victim? How is he being vindicated? It's not like while karma is being a bitch to the perpetrator, it's actually also, making up for it towards the victim. Nothing has been made up. The victim is still the victim. He's still suffering. He's still in pain. He's still suffering the loss. So tell me, how does it help him that the perpetrator is also suffering loss? Especially when the perpetrator's loss will again still be temporary, while the victim's loss is till the end. So to me, I think that is it's useless. And sorry, but I do not care for such karmic, activities, because I'm not seeing what I'm getting out of it. So the person who has caused me harm is now himself a victim to something. But number one, I don't know how long it's going to last. Number two, he doesn't realize why he's going through that. Number three, I'm still where I am. I'm not being compensated. To me, I would feel better if I'm compensated, and if things get better for me, I wouldn't give a frack about the other person going through bad times, because I'm still going through bad times. So who cares that he's going through bad times? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't give a frack about whatever it is that person is going through, because I'm still in pain. So if I'm not compensated, I don't care even if you kill him. I don't care even if somebody goes and murders him. That's not going to give me any respite, because I'm still where I am. So I think that that's bullshit. I think that kind of karmic activity is bullshit, and I'm sorry, but I don't agree with it. This is like, a person who kills another person goes and then he has a road accident, and then he's in a coma, and then after 10 years he wakes up and he's like, oh, I'm seeking redemption, I want to atone for my sins. That person's dead. How are you going to atone for your sins? That person is already in their grave and they've already gone on to the next life. Tell me, how the frack have you compensated him? Are you going to bring him back to life? Are you going to give him another chance at living? So yeah, I do not see the beauty here of this karmic activity. Sorry, I don't. All I see is that God is adding to the wounds of the victim. That's all I see. I'm sorry. And I think, again, I think truly that is what most people see, even the perpetrators. And that is why the world is the way it is today, because they're like, oh, hang on, even God does that, So why shouldn't we? I mean, why should we care, in other words, It's not like God is being fair to anybody. It's not like karma is being fair to anybody, So who cares? That is how people are. They will always see whatever it is that can have some interest for them, self-interest and self-benefit, always. Well, you just think about it. Sit down and think about it. of how much effort another person is making to actually listen to you, and how much effort do you make to listen to the other person. And don't just appreciate the other person for listening to you. No, he doesn't need your verbal appreciation. The way to appreciate another person for giving you his time is you should compensate in kind. Compensate by giving that person what they need when they need it. You cannot compensate by giving them what you want to give them when you want to give them. That's not how it works. Yeah, that's another thing that human beings always seem to want to do. That even if they compensate somebody, they want to compensate them on their own terms and conditions. That's not compensation. Think about all of these things, please, before you sit and brag about who and what you think you are. And this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.